Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. If you're new, my name is Chris, and on my channel I talk about all things fragrant. Today I'm going to do a house overview on Dries van Noten. Now let me tell you, I'm really glad that I dragged my heels on this one because they came out with 4 new scents in 2024 very recently, and I either have them in front of me or in the case of 2, I have sampled them and finished up the sample and have worn them. So I have experience with every last one of them. And I started out probably a year ago, at least over a year ago, with my little discovery set, which I did love, and slowly started adding on perfumes. And then again, the 4 new ones came out. And since I have around 12 to 15, I didn't even count, but I have a lot. I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to jump in with one of my favorites. One of my favorites over the summer. If you are a repeat viewer, if you are a subscriber, you know I love this perfume. And this one really took me by surprise because I hadn't heard a thing about it. Soie Malaquais got all of the attention, and I sprayed this one and I couldn't believe this. This is Jardin de L'Orangerie, and this is a beautiful orange blossom perfume with other things. I mean, it is a beautiful, it's a creamy, slightly sweet, I could smell this forever, slightly vanillic, borderline milky take on an orange blossom perfume. There is a little bit of jasmine in here, maybe a little bit of other florals that I get as it dries down. And I'm not always a lover of jasmine, but let me tell you, the orange blossom jasmine is blended to perfection. And I think it does have like a milky note, and it's very milky, but it's not milky sour, it's milky sweet. I almost get like a marshmallowy sweetness in here. So take a beautiful orange blossom, a little bit of neroli, a little bit of jasmine, and add this beautiful, like a marshmallow milkiness to it. Oh, this is just sweet floral happiness, and Picky Pat absolutely loves this one like I do. All right, so the next one up in my set is Neon Garden. I do not have a full bottle of this, even though it is quite lovely. I do like it. And one thing you do need to know is that these are dabbers. So, you know, the best way to try them is to dab them on skin. But since I can't do that with 15, I dab them on my little dabber. And it still works. It's just a little bit light. But I've worn all of these at least 4 times. I take that back. There's 2 of them that I could not wear more than once. Ew. And I will tell you as we move along. But Neon Garden is a very powdery, vegetal take on iris with a little snap of mint. It's powdery, it's earthy, it's a little bit lipsticky, but on the earthy side. And I do really get a noticeable little hint of mint. And the mint is not toothpastey, it's not mouthwashy. It just adds like an herbal freshness to this. So I really like it. I think it's very, very good in the warm weather. It's absolutely unisex, maybe leaning a tad bit masculine. That's just my guess. And even though I really enjoy this, I do not see myself upsizing to a full bottle because it's not an absolute love. Okay, so the next one up is one that is not included in the Discovery set. And if you order your fragrances directly from the Dries van Noten website, they allow you to add 2 samples with your purchase for free. And I discovered, or I noticed, that there was a Quentin Biche or Quentin Biche creation in the Eau de Toilette line. These are all Eau de Parfum. So there are 3 or 4 Eau de Toilette to choose from. And I ordered a sample and loved it. And so this is the Sur Ma Peau, which means on my skin. And this is a humongous 200 ml bottle that I just loved wearing in the spring and summer. Again, a Quentin Biche creation. This is such a beautiful, I don't want to say simplistic, but I think it's perfectly blended perfume that has orange blossoms, some tonka, resins. There is vetiver in here. And, you know, a lot of vanilla without being a full-on gourmand. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head that smells like this. And the orange blossom is muted. It's not, you know, loud, and it's not soapy at all. And it's not soapy because it is blended with vanilla and tonka, which adds kind of a warmth, a cozy warmth, maybe with the slightest hint of a nuttiness. I mean barely. It is a tad bit earthy in the dry down, either with woods or I know there's vetiver in here. And again, just sweet without being overly sweet and gourmand, due to the vanilla, a little bit of tonka, and whatever resins are in here. It's a little bit balsamic, and it is a little bit ambery, but when I say amber, I'm not talking a winter amber, I'm talking a very light, clean amber. Is an eau de toilette, and it does wear lightly. This one is the eau de parfum, so I have no problems with, longevity, that kind of thing. This does wear lightly, which is fine because it was more of like my grab and go, a very easy reach in the summer. Absolutely love it. The next one is their most popular one, I think, or the one that really got all of the attention and went viral on social media for sure, and Soie Malaquais. A beautiful, I want to say it's a rose-centered perfume, but it has rose and chestnuts or hazelnuts or something nutty in there, very silky, very smooth. Cacao, very creamy, very silky, very powdery with like a nut butter accord, but it just doesn't go overly gourmand because it's balanced off with, I want to say it has velvety notes or silky notes or satiny notes, and it has a really lovely soft rose. So a rose, for those who maybe would call themselves rose haters, if you like a little bit of a gourmand element and you're a little bit afraid of rose, I think this is a beautiful perfume. I'm still kind of on the fence about buying a full bottle because it wears really, 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 really lightly on me, but I think it's definitely full bottle worthy and something I'm still considering and on the fence, but definitely I can see why it's so popular. Okay, so the next one on the list is Raving Rose, and I think Raving Rose is really, really pretty. It's basically kind of rose and pink pepper. I really don't get much else. The rose is very nice and it leans on the jammy side, and the rose is nicely balanced with a little bit of pink pepper. So you've got this slightly jammy, slightly sweet rose offset with a little bit of pink pepper. Not much else going on, and in the dry down it has a musk that goes a little bit dirty, the slightest bit dirty and animalic. I think it's a very pretty scent. I have loads of rose perfume, so I really don't need this in my collection, but I do find it well done, a little bit overpriced for what it is though. So the next one up is Rosa Carnovira, a very, dry, earthy, peppery, thorny, edgy rose scent that is very unisex, might lean a little bit masculine because it does have a lot of pepper, there are a lot of woods, and it also has vetiver. Vetiver is grassy, kind of lends a dry grassiness to it. In a way, it reminds me of something along the lines of Rose 31. So the rose in here, unlike Raving Rose, the rose was jammy. The rose in here in Rosa Carnovira is edgier. It's like a thorny rose. So a little bit different take on rose, a lot more earthy, a lot more dry, a little bit more grassy, a little bit more woody, has some spices in it. Now, Rose 31, the rose is a little bit dewier and it has a lot more spices. The rose in here is not as dewy. It's a little bit more dry, and it has a lot more dry earthiness from that vetiver. So I find it a little bit more of a harsher take on rose, and I enjoy it, but it's really not my kind of rose, and it's not my kind of rose perfume. So I will not be, upsizing to full bottle. Okay, the next one up, I don't even want to open the bottle, is Cannabis Patchouli. This was a big no for me, and I broke my rule of wearing something 4 times before I talk about it on camera. I could not. This is just that horrible. I mean, at least for me, I think cannabis is one of the worst smells on the planet. I wouldn't want to smell like that. And it's just a very herbal, very earthy, very, rotten herbs kind of a thing. Oh, here we go. I need to smell it. But so the cannabis is very, very noticeable. And it's as if you were like, oh man, I finished my doobie. I'm going to throw it in the trash, but I want to hide it from mom. So I want to hide the smell. So I'm going to put a bunch of stuff on top of it in the trash. And the only thing I can find are like old herbs and rotten vegetation. I'm just going to put that on top and then hopefully, shut the can and it will all go away. But the problem is it just smells even worse. So you've got this cannabis and rotten vegetation and rotting herbs. and then you decide, oh man, it still smells terrible. I'm gonna go outside and put some mulch and earth on top of all that. So now you have this hideous stench coming from your garbage, and you go outside and grab a bunch of mulch and just wet dirt and plop it on top. And there you have it. There you have Cannabis Patchouli in a nutshell. So really smells horrible, not my thing at all. Okay, now we're gonna go to one that I find very, very pleasant. This is Santal Greenery. This is right at the top of my list for things that I have on my potential wish list. My wish list is very long. But this is a lovely, lovely fragrance, and a fragrance that I found quite refreshing after having to be assaulted by Cannabis Patchouli. So Santal Greenery is this very lovely, citrusy, fresh sandalwood with a nice juicy fig. It has citruses. I want to say maybe there's lemon, there's grapefruit. That fig is really nice. The fig is in between a green fig and a purple fig, and I get more of a pulp than the skin. So a little bit pulpy, still while being very fresh. It has cucumber leaf in here, so I do get that cucumber vibe. To me, cucumber leaf smells, violet leaf smells like a cucumber. So it adds a lot of freshness, and I think it pairs very, very well with sandalwood. You get, kind of this fresh laundry, like spa laundry meets a spa. Like fresh laundry from a spa type of a vibe. It has a little bit of that spa vibe going on. Definitely one of the better fig-based fragrances I've ever tried. It is really, really lovely, and it has terrific lasting power. All right, sorry to be Debbie Downer again, but now we're gonna go to another one that I found absolutely horrible. This is Voodoo Chili. Voodoo Chili has another one that has, they're really on the cannabis train. So it's got cannabis, patchouli, and rosemary. And what I got from this scent was pot mixed with BO and pizza toppings. I mean, if that's what you want to know what this smells like, there you have it. Another one in a nutshell. Could only wear it one time. It was quite the scrubber. And for the life of me, I don't know why someone would want to smell like that. But obviously there are people out there that find it quite attractive. I mean, listen, we all have our different tastes. That's just not aligning with my taste. I don't really like to smell like that combination of notes on purpose, at least. So that, suffice it to say, that is not, Voodoo Chili is not on my full bottle list. So I completely lied when I said Jardin de L'Orangerie is my absolute favorite. I was being crazy because this bottle was around the corner. My absolute favorite, and the first full bottle I purchased, was Rock the Myrrh. And I've shown this many, many times on my channel, including last year. I think I got this at the end of fall in 2023. I smelled this and it was like, I need a full bottle of this. This is beautiful. Very, very unique take on an amber scent, very resinous amber perfume. But it has this beautiful myrrh note. So it has an incense. It's got a sweet, slightly medicinal myrrh note. It's not overly smoky at all. It has a little bit of spices, a little bit of pepperiness. It has a little bit of an evergreen. So it has this green evergreeny thing going on. And it does have a fairly prominent leather in the opening. And that leather is the slightest bit animalic, but it only lasts for like 5 to 10 minutes, that animalic thing. And then it fades into this beautiful resinous amber with spices, very balsamic, just so addictive. This is one of my most addictive scents. And when I say that, it means that I cannot stop smelling my arm or wherever I sprayed it after I spray it. I will do that throughout the day. And I only do that with, I have a certain number of scents that fall into that category. Rock the Myrrh is right at the top. And this thing, it's like 2 sprays. If you spray it twice, like pss, pss, underneath the sweater or whatever, you're going to get this nice little waft coming up. So it is very strong. So I don't have to use a lot of that. Okay, another full bottle that I have. This was probably an impulse purchase because it is a Quentin Biche creation. And it is a like. It's not a love. And I typically don't spend this kind of money on a like. I don't love it yet, but I find it very appealing, and it is a very interesting perfume, and this is called Fleur du Mal, and I think that translates into like evil flowers, something to that effect. And it was interesting because I think Mr. Biche wanted to create a fragrance that had a lot of juxtaposition. And it's all about, here it's all about the osmanthus and the leather. And it's osmanthus that Mr. Biche said, and it has this duality to it. And it does have a duality. Osmanthus to me, they're these little buds, these little flowers, and they often smell like apricot. They can be a little peachy, but they can smell like apricot. Sometimes they can smell like suede and have a little bit of an animalic touch. So I think that's what he was getting at, this, sometimes this angelic note. Sometimes this note or this material can be very angelic in some fragrances, but it also can be dirty and animalic. So that is the point of view of Fleur du Mal. So really, this is leather, this is osmanthus, and peach. I definitely get a strong peach in here, and it's not the pulpy peach. It's a peach juice and a very clean, like a crystalline, slightly sweet peach juice. So that's what I get. I get leather, I get peach juice, and a little bit of that apricot-y, leathery, suede-y osmanthus. This happened to be my scent of the day. It was Solande today. Ladies, I know how much you love Solande. I love Solande. Didn't have to do my hair. And my stylist said, oh man, you smell so good. And that was underneath, you know, that was underneath my little drape. And I only sprayed like 2 or 3 times. Let me tell you, this thing is strong. Another one you want to be very, very careful on the trigger. I think it's going to be polarizing. You're either going to love it or, I'm not going to say hate it, but not find it worth the money. There's something in here though. There's something that reminds me of guidance. And it's very apparent that the same nose who created this created guidance. I'm not saying at all that they're the same, but what I'm saying is guidance is a sandalwood perfume. So subtract, so exchange the sandalwood for leather and exchange the pear for peach. And then you get a lot of that middle experience. The middle of the perfume is very similar to the body of the perfume in here with those major changes. So like I said, not a dupe. It's not a dupe and not impression, but they share similarities to the degree that I could tell the same nose came up with both of them. Okay, so the next one is Vanille Camouflage, one of the free samples that I got when I ordered a full bottle. And looking at the notes, I really didn't think I would care for this perfume at all. Let me tell you, this is the greenest perfume I've ever smelled. And even though it's so green, and I don't like green perfumes in general, there's something very appealing about this greenness because it's so realistic. This literally smells like a bunch of stems. And I'm not talking about stems of flowers, big hefty flowers, because that has more of an earthy greenness. This is a wet, damp greenness, like you took a bunch of herbs or maybe even like something from your herb garden mixed in with some weeds. And you cut the stem, you cut the earthy part off, you cut the roots off, so you're really kind of getting the wet stem. This is what this smells like, and that's all the galbanum. So very hefty dose of the galbanum, which can be quite bitter. In my opinion, galbanum can be quite bitter, so this one is a little bit bitter, and it stays that way for a while. And I kept wearing it, and as it dries down, I get a little bit of a green fig, not a pulpy purple fig, but I get like an unripened green fig, kind of adding, maybe like a fig skin, adding to that greenness. And as it continues to dry down, I finally get into the vanilla, but it takes a while. At least to my nose, the vanilla does not come out, at least for like 1 to 2 hours. And then you can smell it in the background. But that greenness, even though it fades, it still is there. So a very, very green vanilla. I've had a couple of friends ask me, does it smell like Angelique Noir? Another very green vanilla. And I've worn them side by side twice. And this one is a little bit more bitter. It has a little bit more of that green stemminess. Angelique Noir is more of a vanilla. The vanilla is much more prominent, whereas the greenness in here overpowers the vanilla. And I would say this one's more woody. I'm not sure what the wood is in here. I would guess cedar, but it's more woody. It's more green. It's more stemmy. It's more earthy. It's more fresh, whereas Angelique Noir is a little bit more spicy, a little bit more peppery, and the vanilla is more prominent. So I think this is really nicely done, but it will not, I already have Angelique Noir, and it's not going to be a full bottle for me. But I do think it's worth trying. Okay, another new one is Bitter Splash. And this is one that just looking at the notes, I thought this one was going to be a big hit for me. And, you know, it turns out that it wasn't. Yeah, this is grapefruit. This is evergreeny, a very earthy iris. No, it's orris. It's very earthy, almost bitter. So the grapefruit, instead of being like juicy and fresh and invigorating, it's bitter. I almost get like the grapefruit rind or the skin. I definitely pick up a leather in here, whether there's leather in here or it's just vetiver, but like an earthy leather accord going on. And this has carrot seeds in it. And to me, it kind of smells like a carrot tea. So very earthy, very bitter. So bitter grapefruit like with a carrot tea and a very earthy, dry, woody orris. It just, you know, too much bitterness going on for me. So it really, you know, wasn't, the scent for me wasn't up my alley, wasn't in my wheelhouse, and it won't be a full bottle. Okay, so the next one is Crazy Basil. Another one that's not going to take me that long to talk about. It was another miss for me. A very aromatic fragrance. Basil, lavender, rosemary, very masculine leaning, might have a little bit of geranium in there, very woody. And to be honest with you, it was kind of boring. Kind of fell flat, and it did not last very long at all. So it did not take long for me to realize that this was not going to be a love. This was not going to be a full bottle. And I just think it's too light, doesn't last long enough. It's too masculine. And I think for what the price is, it's just overpriced for the scent. Oh my gosh, I have so many. Okay, so the next eau de toilette that I actually liked a lot, another free sample that I got with my order, is called Bitter Splash. And this is basically kind of like orange blossom, neroli, and it's supposed to be smoke, like incense. So this is this is orange blossom, neroli, and as it dries down, it's a little bit incensey. Those kind of clash a little bit. It's very well done. But it's a fairly simple orange. You have to love orange blossom and you have to love neroli. And I do think that the incense lends a little bit of an interesting twist. I do love orange blossom and neroli, and I do love incense, but I just found that this wasn't very compelling. And if you're like me and you have a ton of orange blossom neroli perfumes already, this one is just a hair redundant. This is another one of the eau de toilette. In the eau de toilette collection, if I didn't say already. And for an eau de toilette, I will say it really had pretty decent lasting power at 5 to 6 hours, which for me is really good. Okay, the second to last one, Mystic Moss. This is another perfect example why you don't want to rush off and buy a perfume after falling in love with the opening. Because the opening of this next one is very good. It's Mystic Moss, and it is the eau de toilettes in the eau de toilette collection. That's big 200 ml bottles. And the sales associate at the Dries Van Noten counter down there in Houston, in the Saks department store, that's her favorite perfume. She's like, oh, you must try this, you must smell this. And she was nice enough to give me a little sample to take home. And I wore it that day as well. And I loved the opening. I thought the opening was very, very good, but you have to be an oak moss lover, because this is an oak moss bomb. So very mossy, very fresh, very citrusy. So it has lovely citruses. It's a very fresh, earthy oak moss. A little touch of mint. I want to say this has a little bit of mint in this. And I was walking around the store, and I was meeting up with one of my childhood friends at the other end of the mall over at Neiman Marcus. We started there, went around, and then came back to end the day. And my friend gave me a hug, and she's like, oh my gosh, you smell so good. I have to buy a bottle of whatever you're wearing. And I'm like, Trisha, I don't think you want to buy it just yet. I've only been wearing this for about a half an hour, because I did not know how the dry down was going to go. And even though it has this really terrific opening, at least for me, it started to get bitter and sour on the dry down. So by the time that we got home, so I'd been wearing it for like 2 to 3 hours, it was just kind of sour. It becomes sour. It also just kind of faded to nothing. So it became sour as skin scent and then nothing. So another really good example. I've had the opposite experience where I've had perfumes where I did not care for the opening, but I waited it out to get to the most spectacular dry down. This is the flip side. This is a really good opening that the dry down was a big letdown. So you do want to, you know, when you're thinking about spending money on a perfume, particularly a lot of money, you want to make sure you get through the whole life of the perfume. I mean, if you absolutely despise the opening and think it's just absolutely hideous, well, that's one thing. It's hard to justify a purchase when an opening is really, really offensive. But for the really good opening, stick around to the dry down, because like this one, it was very, very different. And again, even though my the sales associate loved it, it was her very favorite perfume. It just wasn't for me. And now we're down to the last one, the another one of my full bottles, Chamomile Satin, that I really, this smells really, really good. So this is a vanilla perfume, but it's very herbal. It's chamomile, you have lavender and chamomile, so it's almost as if you made a lavender chamomile tea. You added a little bit of honey. I do not believe honey is in here, but I do get a honeyed sweetness for sure. And you steeped that tea for a long, long time, so it has a lot of rich flavor, but it's not burned. Then you add a little bit of honey to the mix. You add a little bit of sweetness, because tea can be, you know, bitter and sour, and this is a very sweet perfume. So it almost comes off the teensiest bit medicinal, teensiest bit, but in a very, very good way. And then you add a lot of gourmand, heavily gourmand leaning vanilla, like a thick, creamy, dense vanilla. And that is the perfume to me. It wears lightly. So it wears lightly, but it lasts for a long time. I can get at least like 6 to 8 hours, even more on my clothes. I'll pick up whatever article of clothing I was wearing. I can still smell it, you know, the next morning. So beautiful in the bottle, so pretty and lovely, but definitely, certainly not full bottle, you know, certainly not blind buy. Shouldn't blind buy any of these by any stretch of the imagination at that price tag. But because the opening is a little bit herbal and it is a little bit medicinal, and I do think that the honey adds a little bit of a syrupiness, it just might be a big deal breaker for a lot of people, particularly at this price point. But I happen to really, really enjoy it. It's a lovely perfume, and that is it. Did I get through all of them? Yes, I got through all of them. So my quick overview, my house overview of the perfume line. And I would say my favorites, what are my favorites? I would say my favorite is Rock the Myrrh. I'm going to quickly rank them. Rock the Myrrh, followed by Jardin de L'Orangerie. Gosh, I don't know, maybe Sur Ma Peau, Chamomile Satin, and then Fleur du Mal. And then I like Santal Greenery. Santal Greenery is at the top of the list. I really, really like that. But since it's not something that I would wear in the wintertime, to me it's more of a spring summer scent. I'm going to give myself some time to think whether it is a full bottle purchase. And so that was it. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching. Thanks to everybody who was so patient in waiting for me to finally do this house overview. And if you enjoy my content and got something out of this overview, even though I did it fairly quickly, I would love a thumbs up. You know, it does help the algorithm. It does help show the video to other people. And if you haven't yet subscribed, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. And with that, I will see you on the next one. And if you have a house overview you'd like me to do, let me know down in the comments below.